Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Card Shop. I'm the big dog. I'm here with my co-host, as always, Mike Fruitman. Today, Mike is playing the baseball homer with his Rockies jersey on. And we are honored to be joined today by one of the true OGs of the industry, especially from a valuation standpoint, and that is Dr. Jim Beckett. So, Jim, thanks and welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Honored to be here, big dog.
So, we try to make our guests feel at home here. And so, I wanted to pick up the background that would harken back to your beginnings. And so if I ever get my screen to pop up, I will, hopefully this will bring you reminiscence of times gone by. So that might be one of the originals.
Dramatic reveal. It's actually the alternative cover.
Oh, it is? Oh, even better.
The first cover was mainly white, and then that was the more professionally redesigned cover.
Well, the popularity drives the change that you need and gets you out in the public. So, you got started pretty early, but before we get into that, I do want to know how you know my bearded co-host down here, and how it came to be that we could get you on the show.
Mike's on the radar of anything involving LCS and really has his finger on the pulse of the hobby. So when I was, I think maybe one of the summits, you were hosting dinners and things like that. So, but I don't think you've been to the Nationals until last year. So the last few years we've connected in a couple different places. And when I started this podcast that I have, I thought, I want to get a sponsor that can represent clearly, not the plight, but the opportunity of the local card shop. And Mike really epitomized that.
Mike, you want to share your side of this? I think it's pretty funny.
There was a luncheon at the 25, the Hawaii, and we had all sitting down in a rows, and it was actually a Beckett luncheon. And you had grabbed your tray and you were looking around the room, and I basically forced you to sit next to me. You were looking around the room, and I literally went like, sit here, make this the cool table. And you were really nice enough to lower your standards and enjoy lunch with me. And at one point, I want to get this right. At one point, it was during the Bill Sutherland was up there, and seemingly if it was a drinking contest and if the word Beckett involved a shot of rum, we would all have died of alcohol poisoning. But I looked at you and I said, what does it feel to be a pronoun? And I think you came back with, it's better than being an adverb. And I was like, everything he says is perfect. He could do no wrong. He's got taglines.
I am officially being ambushed. Okay. Let's go. No, those are, I have a lot of great memories. There's very few people in the hobby I don't like, but Mike, you got a great sense of humor, and it's you make things fun, and I think that's good. That's good.
Yeah, and we won't ask you to list all the people that you don't like in the hobby, because we don't want to spend any time on that.
Short, a very short list.
Right. So, Jim, I'm sure you've covered this on a lot of venues, but just give us an overview of how you started in the industry and what got you into this. And was it founded in being a collector when you were young, or how did it come about?
Well, all the above. I mean, I started as a young person collector. My dad had been a collector up to some level, and so I got some of his cards, and he kind of bought me my first pack. And my neighborhood, everybody collected. But educationally, I got into math and statistics, and that was a good field. I didn't do it for that reason, but certainly loving baseball cards as a kid, I was kind of a math geek, and so when I was finishing my PhD in statistics, I looking around, I was doing these scholarly articles that nobody was reading about these, complicated statistical theories. And then I thought, wait a minute, there's a problem here waiting to be solved. That is the fact that no one really knows what cards are worth except a few people. Right. And I thought, I'm one of those few. And I know the other few. And if I ask them right and do it right, perhaps we can put together a price guide that, unbeknownst to them, because they had more trepidation than I did, I thought I can do this. And not only that, I really knew this would expand the industry, the hobby.
Right.
In fact, expand the hobby into an industry, because people had a lot more comfort level when they could see in black and white that this is what fair trade value or fair value was for this particular card.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, today we've got eBay and other active markets that let us also gauge as well, but that's still the bellwether. I mean, I can remember getting the guide. I graduated college in 1990 and I remember getting a couple Frank Thomas rookies. I think it was Leaf was his rookie that everyone was seeking. I remember getting that card and seeing the guide and seeing it was worth $100 or something. And I was beyond myself. Then I went and tried to sell them and went, wait a minute, what do you mean it's this or this? It says $100. And people, everybody grew up with that guide helping them orient towards value. And that was something that, in anything that can be bought and sold, without that, you're flying blind, and you help people keep themselves straight in this. And that was much needed for a long time.
Well, what people didn't realize is that, that, and again, I think people have attributed things to me that aren't what I would say. But I mean, the price guides were always a starting point, not necessarily an end point. The starting point is we can both look at this guide, we can see what the guide says, and then we can negotiate from there. If the guide was so perfect, which it wasn't, but if it was so perfect, then there'd be no need to have a new edition the next month.
Right. Yeah, and that's the imprecision's the beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you founded Beckett, you grew it into what it was, right up until, you sold to a prize. How did the grading market come about? How did you decide to get into SVG and PSA's playground on the grading side?
Well, there was a pretty big opportunity there. And, we had thought about that for a number of years. So it's not something we jumped into without thinking. We'd been contemplating that for a number of years. And, if you listen to some of your critics, they say your customers are always right. Nobody says your critics are always right, but our critics were probably wrong in the sense that the few that would voice this, that you shouldn't be grading cards and pricing cards. When in reality, in order to do price guides, that's one of the toughest parts of our job, is you can't just say, well, this card sold for this price, and then put that in your black box and spit out an accurate price. Because without knowing the condition of the card, it's incomplete information. And so all along, our guys were grading. In fact, we populated the grading department with guys that had been some of our senior price guide people, because they totally got it.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm in a big business. I work for a $12 billion company, and I've been involved in lots of mergers and acquisitions, and nothing's more amazing than you can have a bank advising you on the buy or sell of a company, and at the same time, they're working on the financing of that same deal in the marketplace. The concept of, I don't know if you can say it or not, but Chinese walls exist, and you can have those in the world, and it doesn't make it wrong. And, I've always thought it interesting how much you expanded the universe of what was possible in the hobby, and people have had a hard time keeping up in a lot of places.
Well, in one sense, they were under one umbrella, but in another sense, they're two separate things.
Right.
If grading, if BGS was not considered to be at least the equal of PSA when we got started, because they were the incumbent, then we wouldn't have floated. We'd have sunk.
Right.
And the same thing, we were doing a grade at grading, but it was compromising the integrity of our price guides, then we'd have had problems there. So we had to be twice as good. We had, again, we had great people on our team, great people. And I should mention Mark Harwell, who was the president of our company at that time, one of my good buddies who's now passed away, but he basically came from a coin background, and he was just salivating over the opportunity to jump into grading. He said, this is going to be great. And some of the innovations in his marketing and digital savvy, understood that we had to make a grading company for the 21st century. And this was
Right.
in the late 90s. So we tried to bring some innovation to it and not be a copycat Me Too service, because PSA was doing great.
Mm-hmm.
But we weren't trying to be almost as good as them. We were trying to be better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going with the grading part, are you following? I mean, right now you're following the. Like Jim, do you ever get cards graded?
I have a grading order submitted right now. Don't start.
Attaboy. You and me both.
I was wondering whether Mike Fruitman was going to make an appearance in this show. waiting to come in. No, I have a bunch of cards at BGS. Jeremy's my buddy, but apparently he's not such a good buddy that he's going to give me. I don't go to the front of the line, that's for sure, and I don't get preferential grades either. But I've had cards in there since before COVID, which nobody's going to play the violin for me. But there are because there's a big backlog, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
But I kind of regularly submit a few cards because I like to see what's going on, and basically what's gradable is evolving, and then I also grade for the purpose of protection. And Mike's been down here. I have kind of a wall of fame where all the cards that are alphabetized by player and celebrity, they're all graded by BGS.
So I'm looking at the market now, and do you ever? I mean, I know you won't take credit for what the market is right now, but do you ever look and are you amazed by where we are in terms of collecting right now? I mean, Sean, if Sean hasn't shown you his pile, his grading pile, his return from Beckett is a pretty substantial pile. But like, I know you're not going to take credit for creating this, but are you just amazed with where we're at right now with the market?
I'm so amazed at the market that I'm wondering why you're not giving me credit for it, Mike.
Fair enough.
I would love to get the credit, but I've been gone for 15 years, and I think we set some things in motion. But the team has worked really hard, and what the new entity has that I didn't have. I was build the best mousetrap, and people will come and find it. And the new entity that I've sold to, and now the successors are like, take that better mousetrap and market it aggressively. Yeah. And so I really let things market themselves, and it served me fine. But they're aggressively going out there and getting cards, and they've got a big backlog. So I'm not going to be a complaining customer. I'm just going to say, I don't know what I'm going to say. I can't twist their arms anymore. I'm not the boss.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing thing. I mean, from where I sit as a guy who buys, I collect and I sell, the grading does do what one of its purposes is. It gives people more certainty than they have on a raw side. It gives them something to benchmark against other similar types. But as Mike and I have talked on past shows, you still got to use your eyes, because there is still judgment involved with grading, and people get caught up in, oh my God, that's a 9.5, and they stare at it, and and there is no certainty. So people need to understand it's not different than the price guides. It's setting a range for you to assess and let you figure out what kind of value you want to put on something as a benchmark. And too many people treat it like Bible.
It's real simple. You take your card and you figure out what the grade is.
Yep.
And subtract. Or you take what your opponent says the grade is and add. It's
exactly.
They're one's up by a half point, one's down by a half point.
Right.
And you'd meet in the middle. Right. So I've learned one thing on this show now, is that I'm apparently coming in behind Sean Barker on my submissions as well. You got some stuff back?
I might be paying for fast service.
Okay. Well, that's you got the magic touch then.
Yeah, mine were on a 5 and a 5, and I've had like 550 cards graded since I had a lot in right when the virus started, and then I had another lot since, and both of those have come around, and it took a little longer, but I've seen PSA's thing, and it takes them 25 days to acknowledge that you have cards.
Yeah.
And that's not a good
That means
business
that
model.
they didn't open it. That doesn't count until they open the package.
Exactly.
You know what? I've even enticed them. This is a reveal here. I've even enticed the BGS guys that if they could finish my order, then I'll give another large order. And for some reason, that is not appealing to them. So I'm still waiting. I've got a big order that'll go as soon as I get the other one. They said, well, you could just bring that along. I said,
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, when you sold, you kind of like you retired. And it's amazing how quick they don't care that you used to run the show. You know, they got a business to run.
I should have sold for cash and future grading considerations.
A lot of value in that these days.
And more than I realized.
So what are you getting graded right now? What's on the to be graded pile?
You know what the weirdest thing is?
Yeah.
I mean, basically I have like stuff for my wall, and then I have stuff that I'm probably going to sell, and then I have stuff that's just needs to be authenticated. You know, that like some BAS, some great cards that
Sure.
I've got a bunch of those. So the fourth category is this. It'd be a nightmare, except I'm having to have slabbed and authenticated my own autograph on my own cards. I'm having to pay to have my autograph authenticated on my top fan favorite card.
That's okay. I wanted to break into that. Now, you and Sean have similar interests in some regard. You're Jim, I know you have passion for Pittsburgh. You're a Clemente guy, and Sean is much of a Pittsburgh gentleman as well. Yeah. So going with that, what is your coolest, and I'm sure it's Clemente, or I'm guessing it's Clemente, if you feel like sharing, what's your coolest Clemente item, and like what's the thing out there that, like, I don't know, it's your holy grail? What's been unreachable or just you never could justify?
Besides a T206.
I don't think I really have a grail anymore. I mean, my goal is to have less cards every year, and I've got some great cards. I have too many. Some of the Clemente stuff is so it's not a question of what I would sell last is more important than what I would buy next. And so some of the Clemente stuff is really cool, but I have regrets, as I've mentioned, that there's certain very universally acknowledged grail cards when I've been an underbidder at a pittance. And there's other really cool Clemente stuff that I could have bought that, again, I thought, well, I'm just not going to go a little bit more, let the other person have it. And, I'll never see it again. So, that's lesson learned even for me.
So the last thing you would get rid of in your life would be apparently a Clemente item. And is there a specific one?
Well, what I've said before is kind of the Clemente rookie card.
Okay.
Product. So that's kind of interesting, but I don't know that, it'll be in the last wave. I mean, there's probably other stuff too. It's going to be tricky. If I'm trying to get rid of 10% of the cards each year for 10 years, what's in that last 10% is going to be pretty special.
Yeah. That's, I have, my whole goal when I'm doing all this is I want to build a personal collection that I'm proud of. And it's funny, it's not a valuation issue. It's a memories and experiences issue. And at its core, that's what this hobby is. It's memories and experiences, and the cards you collect, if you're really something like that, it's going to be, that means the most when it's something that you have a personal story around. And I've seen lots of people who that's their story and that's how they collect.
Well, that's the new approach. The old approach was quantity was king. Completing sets. Having quantity, and now it's quality. And complete sets are not. Most people aren't interested in that. They really want grail cards, and I won't say the fewer the better because they'd like to have. But if you're paying, even if you're getting a good deal on some of these grail cards, a good deal could be still 6 figures on some of these cards.
Right. Well, documented. As the guy who sold probably the first Zion Williamson RPA out of National Treasures, in a private deal. It's interesting that people those are grail cards for people. It's an amazing circumstance, and the prices of this stuff is so crazy. I don't have a Grail card, I think, because I think anything that I would think is a Grail, someone's willing to give me enough money that I won't keep it. And the industry, it's crazy.
Well, it's crazy, but crazy good. I mean, it's
Yeah,
the better
absolutely.
than having a bunch of cards that people think, oh, those are really rare, but
Yeah,
can you really
yeah,
sell those? The answer
yeah.
is sometimes you can sell it for a lot more than you paid for it, even if you paid for it a short while ago.
So
Jim,
in some regards, go ahead. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Jim, one of the things we've seen since COVID began is the amount of people who have been at home and they're refocusing on their collections. I mean, our supply sales have been obscene from people who are going back and they want to collect and they want to protect. One of the things we've seen, and I wanted to get your gauge on this, is, I mean, it used to be the 89 Upper Deck Griffey was the best one you could have, and then you could get the 90 and then the 91, and you'd see a big depreciation between 1 and 2 and a slight. But at one point, second-year cards were a big thing. Third-year cards were a big thing. And now we've seen the reemergence of like a rookie select, a rookie prism for LeBron, for Kobe, a lot of the key players. Is that an enthusiastic thing for you? What's your take on the appreciation for cards that maybe have been really underappreciated all these years?
Well, what's happened, and maybe this is because of the single sport licensee monopolies, but brand now, sub-brand or brand is important now. If you go back 30 years ago to the junk wax era, almost all those brands were, I mean, that's why Upper Deck stood out, because even though it was very heavily produced, it had higher quality than the other brands of the day. But 93 Finest, it could be a 50-year card, but it's the first premium brand of a key player, and that's the prisms and the optics and these other kinds of shiny things now. If it's the first appearance, and it's a high quality card, it's just not, again, it's not based on the supply, because I don't think they're necessarily printing less of the premium brands than they are of the more common brands. But branding is important, and that's probably as it should be.
Yeah. So
I mean, the cards are works of art now. I mean, they're really outstanding. The quality.
Yeah, it's amazing how far they've gone.
We get minutely picky, but they've come a long way.
Yeah. So Jim, it's interesting. I hearken back to the days when, before Chris Moneymaker won the World Series of Poker, if you were a poker player, you didn't tell anybody you were a poker player. You just kind of found out someone else was too, and you'd tell each other you were. And card collecting has gotten to the point where now people are in the post Moneymaker era. People go, I collect cards. You can actually say it and you don't get the nerd watch. And anytime I have that conversation with somebody, invariably they admit to me that they collect cards. And so it's come to where I think it's back in them, I don't want to say mainstream, but it's pretty mainstream. And I think that's a tremendous thing. For you, where you sit, you went through the junk wax era and you saw the big decline for a while. Does it feel kind of vindicating or validating to see people come back into the industry and collect in the way they have, with such a energy and zest?
Well, I mean, we're pejorative about the junk wax era, but that was a lot of fun for a whole generation of people. They didn't have their bad experience was at the end of the junk wax era, when they had to try to sell their cards.
Sure.
But if they had just extended to the mid 90s or into the 95, 96, 97, and gone for some of the premium, case hit inserts, they wouldn't be complaining at all.
Sure. Yeah, and my co-host would tell you it's called the affordable wax era, not the junk wax era.
Right now, I'm in front of my shelves, and if you guys can notice, my first shelf down is my basketball shelf. What we've now resorted to having to do is, instead of pre-COVID, each spot would have two products on a spot, and we'd go 3-4 deep. I've got 4 across on 17, 18 Absolute right now. I feel like the girl has got to push the boobs together to make them look good. I've got nothing on my wall left, and it's a really, from a shop perspective, it's a balance of, well, I bought this to sell it. This is mission accomplished. And in the same regard, I always want to put on a good show.
Uh-oh.
And they're amazing.
Look them up. If you're looking for a handful of cards, you can look them up and kind of make your little notes.
Right.
But if you're just looking to be an opportunistic buyer, you've either got to have a lot of knowledge, upstairs.
Yeah.
And so
We're doing these.
Yeah.
At my shop, we're doing these weekly singles nights, and I'll sit down my Friday night relaxation, my favorite night of the week, well, other than date night, of course. I'll sit there on a Friday night and I'll price out 200 cards, and I find that it's very therapeutic for me. I try to ignore the phone. I try to enjoy the computer. And the first thing I do is I look them up by Beckett. And what's interesting now is, so many years ago, people would say Beckett on my card, $50 on sale for $39. And their first question is, oh, what's it selling for on eBay? And Beckett, wrong. Rah, 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 rah.
I know what you're going to say. But go ahead and say it.
Well, now it's interesting, and I'm looking at, I looked up a 93, 94 finest Jordan the other day, and I looked at Beckett to come up with my starting price, but I looked at the eBay price, and it's so far beyond. The changes that we're seeing are so immediate, and I think it's going to get more interesting if and when sports actually start. If Luka, your shirt, Luka goes for 38 the first night with 8 assists and 4 whatevers. I mean, I think the run that you're going to see on a card like that is going to be faster now than possibly at any other point. I think the focus on sports right now, the hope that they come back, the thirst the hunger that we have for sports right now, and the investment side, I think we're going to see runs faster than we may have ever seen in the past.
Yeah.
Could be, and I'm fine with that. And again, the Beckett Price Guide guys are great guys. They've got a really tough job. They work it really hard, but it's very, very difficult. It was difficult when I was doing it. We had a whole bunch more people than they have now. It's even with the greater access to data, it's still there's so many cards, so many cards.
Yeah. Yeah. So
well,
we pushed over 30 minutes, and my apologies. I had a little bit of technical difficulty in my end. I think everything went fine with the conversation, and thank God it was Mike's turn to have the talk anyway. So, we have a huge storm going in town, and it seems like that's when the radar snows. I'm being mindful of your time, Jim, and I want to make sure that, one of the things we do here is give folks time to share what they'd like to share about to them, and we want to give you that few minutes to do that.
Well, thanks, both of y'all. I mean, I'm a faithful listener and subscriber to y'all's podcast, and I try to do all of them. And it's getting to be a crowded field out there.
Yeah.
But it's like restaurants. There's always room for another one that's got some good recipes and good execution and good food. So you guys have good food. So I'm enjoying that. But my podcast, just like your podcast, is a little bit different than all the others. And so I want to keep cranking out kind of daily issues and daily episodes that are kind of eclectic and episodic, not if you miss one, you're not lost.
Right.
It's just, so I can do them. They're kind of timeless, and I'm enjoying that. And so, but I'm also enjoying being on like your show or other kinds of shows where instead of me controlling the microphone or doing the script as if there were a script, it's coming back with the back and forth of you guys asking a question. That's why I've had the dueling questions format. I don't think I've done that with Mike yet, but I've done that with a few other guys where just go questions back and forth.
Right.
And you just never know what's going to come up. And so it will remind me of a story that I hadn't thought of, but for that question.
Right.
So it's been, I will say that, that Mike was, you were at the dinner before, right?
I missed this year. Yes. Yeah. Last year. Yes.
But the year before is when I was kind of talking about doing a podcast. And I will say this, it's been more fun than I thought. And you were already way more socially media savvy, but here you are also having a podcast and other forms of distributing your wisdom to the hobbies. I'm enjoying it, and I've got a niche, and otherwise, what am I going to do? I mean, I mean, I have a life, but I have stories that I'm not going to sit down and write them out.
Yeah.
So this is, the fact that you guys can draw out some dimension that, the personality of the person that's interviewing and their age and their experience all suggest different responses sometimes.
Right.
So I was looking forward to this.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased. I'm not looking forward to it, and I'm really disappointed. No, I'm not disappointed. I knew this would be fun, because you guys, when you come on, you make it fun. And that's why when we're talking about hobbyists, they're not ashamed to say they're collectors.
Yep.
Because if they were to go to some of the social media or the podcasts or the blogs out there, they'd say, hey, this is a dynamic thing. They've got some, and it's really positive, really positive.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Jim,
Jim, if you have something
wanna share
to go, oh, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I want to share like a massive thanks. I mean, I don't go fanboy. I work at Pepsi Center and concerts and stuff, so I'm not really impressed by human beings. Thanks for extending this life for me, allowing me to have this as what I choose to do. There's countless numbers of us who wouldn't be able to, who wouldn't have picked up the industry, wouldn't have stayed with it, wouldn't have found enjoyment in it, wouldn't have convinced their wives that this is really what they were put on this earth to do.
Amen.
There's a whole generation that owes you, and a lot of don't even know it, unfortunately, but owe you a severe note of gratitude. I know you're not going to take this very well, but you've created, you have helped flourish. I mean, you don't call me the OG, but seriously, it's and you've done it in a very positive way. And getting to meet you and get to know you and become a friend, there's never a disappointed moment to it. You meet athletes sometimes and you walk away and you're like, oh my God, Reggie Jackson's not an ideal person to meet without being colorful. But meeting you and getting to know you and getting to be a friend and finally getting to the point where I'd actually call you Jim, has been a true honor and a true pleasure. And I want to make sure I get it on video, saying that, but it's really important to me to share that. There's a whole generation of us, there's a whole generation of me's and other people, Sean's, who really owe you a severe note of debt of gratitude for allowing this to be fun, allowing this to be cool, keeping it going, legitimizing it, and without me rambling for another 5 minutes, extolling the virtues of what you've done, just a massive thank you.
The definition of a narcissist is someone that says, no, take another 5 minutes, Mike. But, if I'm looking for a PR agent, you're hired, Mike. I mean, that's overly generous. I mean, I think I was part of a wave, a cultural wave, and I maybe I was even an important part of it, but I had lots of teammates, and there were a lot of other people doing great stuff out there. And again, we're all blessed to be part of this, about this industry, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I completely reject it.
Well, Jim, you're hearing it from me as well. I can tell you that lots of people have contributed to where we are, but there's only one named Beckett on a lot of the services and benchmarks that we use as an industry, and for that I appreciate greatly the efforts and the 10,000 hours plus you spent to get to the point where this was something that you could build.
The 10,000 hours was just 1 year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you want a card shop? You work $10,000 hours a year also.
So Jim, I do want to give you a chance, mention the name of your podcast for all of our listeners to make sure if they go jump on, I can tell them they're small vignettes and they're worth it.
Dr. James Beckett Sports Card Insights. I think I'm really the only daily podcast. So I knock out every day of the week, and I do a couple on Saturday because I don't really work on Sunday. But so over the course of a year, I'm up into 200 and some episodes, and like I say, they're out of order, and people listen to old ones or new ones. And I'm having a good time. I got great sponsors. I got great guests, and some of them, like I said, are other podcasters.
Right.
You
Yeah.
always have some, and my hat's off to people. People, there are complainers in our industry, and there's doers. There's dreamers,
Right.
and there's doers. You guys are doers. So
Yeah.
I don't want to criticize the doers. I want
Yeah.
to say keep up the great work.
Yeah. So Jim, thank you for joining us on behalf of Mike and myself. We appreciate greatly you join us on the show. And folks, if you enjoy the show, please like it, share it, let other people know, and please check out Dr. Beckett's podcast as well. So thank you all, and take care.